And it occurred to me that this is probably the greatest travel story I will ever have. That was one of my more amazing expeditions. They decapitated the baboon on the spot. They smeared my face with blood, and they wear baboon skins like backpacks. And they threw it right on the fire and seared all the hair off of it. Ate the first piece because I was the guest. That was the staple of their diet. That was the
Ah,
story of I was bait
baboon.
during the baboon hunt.
You're listening to Before They Vanish, a Big Blend radio podcast featuring author, explorer, and naturalist James Michael Dorsey. So, welcome everyone. We get to do our second episode with James Michael Dorsey, an amazing author, world traveler. And you can go to his website, jamesmichaeldorseyauthor.com, to learn more about his books. And today, on the second episode of Before They Vanish, we're going to be talking about his books. One of his books, Baboons for Lunch and Other Sordid Adventures. In fact, that's how we first met James, is when travel writer and author Linda Ballou featured this as one of those books for the holiday season last year that people should gift. And I'm like, Baboons for Lunch. That's a good title to gift somebody. I think that's fantastic. So she talked about the book, loved the book. And then we connected and you talked a little bit on a couple past episodes about this title, and which is the main story, because this is a collection of essays, right, James? And honestly, takes you around the world and you meet all kinds of people. So, but the Baboons for Lunch was your star, right?
That was the main story. Yeah, that was the crux of the book, and then also the photo on the cover.
Yeah. So tell us, Baboons for Lunch, a little backstory on there, but don't give the whole thing away.
Story. Well, I had wanted to see. I had heard about this group of hunter-gatherers, supposedly considered to be the last true hunter-gatherers on the African continent, the Hadza or Hadzabi people in western Tanzania, and I wanted to go see them. So I did. I mean, I had a friend who has a safari company, and he arranged everything for me and got me over there. And it was quite a trek to get to see these people because they are nomadic and they don't live in any one place. They move daily. So it took
Oh,
some
wow.
tracking down to find them.
So, wow. See, it's almost like you have to go on safari, not just for the animals, but to actually find the people that live way out in the boonies, right? And they're nomadic. So that's interesting because a lot of tribes in Africa are just like even the Native Americans here in the United States, right?
Yes, they are. This tribe in particular was so, I don't like to use the word feral, but it's what comes to mind. Like if they made a kill, the entire village would relocate to the kill rather than bringing it back to camp. That's how nomadic they were.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I just wanted to accompany them and document one of their kills, and it ended up becoming so much more than that I wasn't planning on.
But you stayed safe, right? They, they played tricks on you, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They used me.
Well, okay, so isn't that kind of interesting about meeting different tribes? Like they have their own tests of the people that they meet, right? And this isn't going to be the first test you've been through.
No, no, I had to do quite a few things before they would even allow me to approach them. I saw them from a distance. They were huddled around a fire in a cave when I found them. And at first, they completely ignored me. So I just started taking photographs and getting closer and closer. I figured if they got mad at me, they'd do something, but nothing. So when I got all the way up to them, they were sitting around a small fire, and they kicked out the fire and they made another little fire using friction, and then they pointed at me. So they wanted me to make a fire using friction. That was my first test before they would talk to me. So I did that. It took me 3 tries and I made a fire. And I thought that was great. But then they brought out a pipe, and it's not uncommon to have to smoke with a village headman. Usually it's tobacco. Sometimes it's ganja. In this particular instance, it was very potent ganja, and I really didn't want to have it at that time because I wanted to be able to record and document everything I was seeing. But if I didn't smoke with them, I would not have been offered entree to their little group. So I did, and it was very powerful stuff. I mean, but what surprised me even more was I found out these guys smoked around the clock. I couldn't do that. I didn't even try to do that. But for them, it was just a constant way of life. And so anyway, after making fire and smoking with them, then they brought out a bow and arrow, and they wanted to see if I could use it. So I fired an arrow into a tree. I could barely pull the bow. These guys are like 5 feet tall, and they'd pull a bow that would drop an elephant.
Wow.
I could I could barely fire an arrow with this thing. It was so powerful. But that was my third test. And after I passed it, they just motioned for me to join them and they took off. I mean, they were like rabbits the way they took off through the forest.
Oh,
So
wow.
they all grabbed their bows and arrows, and I knew it was a hunt. And I just was trying to follow them. Now, it had been raining hard the night before. So fortunately, I could follow their tracks in the mud because I could not keep up with them. They were moving. But every few minutes, one of them would pop out of the bushes and he would give me a hand signal, go this way or go that way. And I thought, okay, they know exactly where I am. They're not leaving me behind. They're just doing their own thing and they're directing me on how to join them. So I'm doing this. And then all of a sudden, everything gets very quiet. And I hear some large commotion coming through the bushes, no more than 20 feet from me. And this totally enraged baboon breaks cover, and he's got his fist balled, and he's showing me his fangs. And now a baboon can easily kill a man. They stand 3 to 4 feet tall. Before I could even react, this baboon was on the ground twitching with 2 arrows in him, because these guys use a neurotoxin. And it was only at that point that I realized there was one of these Hadza on each side of me, and they both already had another arrow knocked in their bow ready to fire. So at
Wow.
this point, the adrenaline's kicking in. I'm starting to go into shock because I thought I almost got killed by a wild animal. And then it realized these guys had me covered the entire time. So I was never terribly in any danger. And then I got very, very angry because I realized they had set me up and used me as bait. These so-called primitive people had really outsmarted me on that one. And my anger was very short-lived because then I'm going through all these emotions and I started shaking. I was so upset. And it occurred to me that this is probably the greatest travel story I will ever have. So at least I was grateful for that. And it actually became a very popular book.
Yeah.
So that was one of my more amazing expeditions.
And they could do all this hunting, all this technique, just as that's normal life and as stoned as can be. That's pretty amazing, you know?
They are hunter-gatherers. They decapitated the baboon on the spot. They smeared my face with blood, which meant that I
Oh,
was part of the hunt. And they wear baboon skins like backpacks. And they just threw all this dead baboon into another pack, took it back to this cave they were in that night, and they threw it right on the fire and seared all the hair off of it. And I ate the first piece because I was the guest. It was tasteless and stringy and tough, but that was the staple of their diet. And so that was the
wow.
story of I was bait
Baboon.
during the baboon hunt.
Well, the whole thing with baboons too, it's like freaky. To me, they were the scariest animal other than snakes in Africa were the baboons, and I think the leopard was their biggest, fear maybe was a
Yes,
leopard that would take them out.
the baboons are fearless. As far as people go, they'll attack you in a split second. I've had them come right at me before.
Yep, me too. Oof.
Even more interesting, though, was after I returned from that trip, I read a piece. It was either the Wall Street Journal or Scientific American. I really don't recall anymore. It's been so long. But it stated that that particular group of Hadza that I had traveled with was one of 3 distinct genetic groups from which all of mankind is descended.
Wow. Wow.
That may or
That's
may not be
incredible.
true, but it's out there if somebody wants to look it up.
It's
It didn't.
amazing.
Yes, yes, and it's quite possible. It's quite possible.
When you think about, where they were, because Tanzania and all that areas, they call that the motherland. I mean, the Rift Valley, isn't that where we were born from? Like that's what I was always told in Kenya was the Rift Valley is the birthing place kind of
And
thing.
yes, and that's where the original Lucy came from that the Leakeys discovered. She was
That's
the
right.
oldest hominid for quite a while. She's been predated by others since then, but yeah, this was well, we were a little north of the actual area. I was in western Tanzania, and most of the older fossils were in southern Ethiopia, but it wasn't that far away.
Mm,
100 miles maybe at the most. And
wow.
I have
And
been
things
in that
shift.
area also.
Wow. Wow. So when you look at, this, I mean, are they still around? Because before they vanish, I mean, how many of this tribe do you think exist now?
Well, at the time I was there, I was told there were about 3,000 of them. And they lived in an area called the Manyara Highlands of western Tanzania. They were surrounded by 300,000 Maasai. And they had this symbiotic relationship where the Hadza would provide the Maasai with pelts and meat in exchange for their metalwork because the Hadza were not technologically advanced enough to work with metal. So they cooperated with the Maasai.
Wow. Because the Maasai, they were always smelting things and their spears and everything I mean, that was something they did. Remember
Yeah,
that. Oh, wow.
right.
And then when you think about the Hadza, right? And when I look at tribes in Africa, one of the dearest to me, which we've talked on other shows on too, is the Sand People.
They are cousins.
They're cousins.
They speak the same Khoisan click language. They come from Namibia. And a few hundred years ago, a large group of them migrated east and became the Hadza. They're basically the same people. They're cousins. They speak the same language. It was the San people that were in that old movie, The Gods Must Be Crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
they're very closely related people.
And smart and good hunters, really good hunters as well.
Amazing hunters. And they live off the land with no problem whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, because they live it versus what we do, in Western civilization. But now, Baboons for Lunch, this book, you have, stories where you go to China, you're in different places. So you met all kinds of people. Is that kind of the thread for this book of stories, is just the different people you meet and what they put you through or what you went through?
That's what I'm all about, is visiting as many
Mm.
vanishing societies as I possibly can before they're gone.
Well, China, people would wonder why, but you went to China, and that's something that some people get to do, and it's like a faraway, distant land for many others. And going to China, I mean, they've got a lot of traditions. I remember interviewing a couple of writers who wrote a book about how to prepare yourself to outdrink the Chinese so that you can do a business deal. Like you had to be able to drink. And I don't know if that's a certain part. That was a long time ago that I did that interview, but I had no idea that drinking was a huge part of their culture.
Also, they are honor bound to serve you far more food than you can possibly eat, because that's how they give themselves face.
Okay.
Yeah, they will keep piling food on until you just can't take any more, and then they feel good about it. They
Mm.
show how well off they are compared to you.
Oh, I see. Okay, and now you met a kitten and cats? You met a cat or two. Some cats in
Yeah.
China?
Yes, I was traveling with a friend, and we had delivered some medical supplies to a remote area in Zhejiang province, which is northwestern China. And as a reward for that, we were invited by the military governor of Zhejiang to dinner. And he was going to send a car for my friend and I thought we were just going to some nice local restaurant, but it turned out we drove through a desert for 2 or 3 hours. And we arrived at a Chinese military installation where there were jets landing and taking off. And I just about freaked out at that point, because I've got 3 cameras in my bag and they're taking me to a Chinese airbase. That's a real no-no. But so anyway, they opened the gates, they saluted as we drove in, and we were escorted to this big yurt. And inside there were all these people, and first of all, there were feral cats everywhere on this base, all over the place. So we were having this amazing dinner. They put all this food out. I couldn't even identify some of it, and I knew I couldn't eat a lot of it without losing it again. But if I didn't eat, I would offend my hosts. So they were drinking lots of rice wine that night, and it was going around the table making toasts. And you had to constantly make toasts and take a shot of this rice wine. So they were getting pretty inebriated, and I'm eating a little bit of food and I'm moving the rest around on my plate so they wouldn't notice. And all of a sudden I felt a pain in my leg, and here's this cat who's grabbed me, and it wants food. So I'm looking around, and my host is kind of drunk. I figure he doesn't watch me that closely because there's a lot of people at the table. I made kind of a funnel with my napkin, and I would take food in my fork, drop it under the napkin. It would slide down to the cat, and the cat would eat it. And that's how I managed to clean my plate. And I thought, I'm getting away with something here, you know? But all of a sudden, the cat belches very loudly, and everybody in the room stops. And I think, okay, I'm busted now. This cat gave me away. They thought I belched. And I only found out a few minutes later that if you belch after dinner in China there, it's a high compliment for the meal. And so after I thought this governor was going to stand up and be totally angry with me, and instead he proposed a toast to me for enjoying the meal so much and belching. So I figure that little cat did more for Sino-American relations than any diplomat ever could.
I love that. Because it's normally a dog under the table, but this one's a cat. I
Yes.
love this. the cats of China, and then those kinds of things. I mean, and what is it that makes you keep going into this? Like, what is, I mean, these things happen. Once you start having these experiences, you're
Hmm.
not immune to it if you're going to go into it, but what drives you to keep doing it? Do you have that, like, let's see how I'm going to get out of this now? Or like, what is it? Because most people will run and go, I'm never doing that again. But there is something once it's over that you're really chuffed about, right? There's like an adrenaline high that you get off of it later, right?
That's exactly what it is. It's an adrenaline high, and I'm fascinated by these people, the costumes, the ceremonies, the dances, the masks, the colorfulness. It's so much richer than what I perceive in the United States. That's my personal thing, you know. I'm fascinated by these remote peoples, and I just can't get enough of it. In fact,
Mm.
I am right now planning a trip to Mongolia in October. Um, and I'll be riding with eagle hunters up in the Altai Mountains.
Man.
I was very close to this area on the Chinese side when that dinner took place. This time I'll be on the Mongolian side, very near the same area. And that whole mountaintop there is covered with hand carved granite effigies of people because most of the people believe that was where Genghis Khan sheltered his army for a winter to perform religious ceremonies before they rode west to conquer Europe back in about 1400 something. The date escapes me right now. But
Wow.
yeah, they left behind a significant number of these giant stone carved monoliths, and I'm going to go see all of this. Besides seeing that people go hunt with eagles.
Wow. Wow. Don't you have to be on horseback when they do that?
Yes, yeah, they're
Right?
Yeah, I do, but these are Mongolian horses, so they're quite short. I
Yeah,
mean,
they're little ponies.
yeah, they're very strong, very sturdy. I would be apprehensive about riding in the mountains on a full-size horse at my age, but not with these little ponies.
Yeah.
It'll be wonderful. So I'll be
Like
staying.
mules in a
I'm
way.
going to be staying with at least four different nomadic families that all are eagle hunters, and I will stay in their yurts with them and see
Wow.
all of this.
Now, when you go to do this, do you like load up on antibiotics before,
No,
during, or do you just wait until you come home and, you know, I just have like a good shot of tequila or some, or two or three afterwards,
I don't. I don't take anything in particular. No.
right? You just go for it and whatever. Yeah,
Well,
because
I
so many
don't
people
eat.
are traveling with antibiotics now. It's like they
You
just,
know, I've
yeah,
been doing this at least 30 years and I've never taken anything. The only shot I've ever had is yellow fever because it's required for entry to Africa.
yeah,
I've never gotten sick more than minor stomach irritation
yeah.
but I'm very careful. I don't eat just everything. I can't because I can't take a chance on getting ill in these remote areas.
Mm.
There's no medevac, there's no medical facilities. And if I can't eat the food, I've always got the power bars and trail mix that I carry with.
That's cool. Yeah, I've never got sick either. And like ate with everyone, like communal style. Everyone's hands going in the same thing, and you wash your
Right.
hands,
No,
communal water, and nothing's ever happened. And I wonder if it's sometimes if it's our attitudes.
I'm sure that has a lot to do with it, but yeah, and I eat with my hands are filthy and I eat with my fingers because that's all you can do in these
Hmm.
places. You
It's
just,
just so much easier. You don't have to do the dishes.
absolutely. There are no,
Well, there are things about this, right? I mean, you with this book, I think, everyone's on Amazon, the links are in the episode notes, but the fact that you're going all over the place, all over the world, all these different people, you're meeting shamans, you're meeting all kinds of people. And is that part of it for you? Not always just everyone in a tribal setting out in the boonies, but you're going to meet whoever you meet to kind of get that experience. Because there's a then and now, and some of these tribes are living in the now, obviously, but also just managed to keep that way of life kind of preserved.
and for me, this has always been a spiritual search.
Mm.
I always question why I'm here, what's my purpose in the world, and what comes next. And so the more of these people I see, they have different beliefs from animists to Buddhists to Muslims, you name the religion. And I've tried to look into it and take something from all of them and
Mm.
do it in my own life.
Okay, but when you go through your book, Baboons for Lunch, number one, even the title's funny. It is. And I mean, the experience, no matter what, no matter how crazy anything gets, later is funny. It's really true. It is. It's later. It's just you look on it, or maybe not. I mean, some things can go really wrong, but humor seems to play a role in your writing.
I try to, yeah. If I can work some humor into it or see it from a different perspective, I'll add that to a story, certainly.
Doesn't that also keep us humble when we're traveling to just laugh things off instead of freaking out?
Yes, and I'm always totally aware that the people that are totally different from me may know a whole lot more about life than I do. So I'm always aware of
Yeah.
that.
I got to this point that we really absolutely know nothing. We just don't.
Mhm.
Like, even though we have okay, we've gained this knowledge, and we can never really be sure about anything ever because it just something else will come along. They're going to find an older Lucy somewhere else around the
Sure.
corner. You know what I mean? And then it's like, keep learning, but the fact is we're never really getting the full thing.
No, and most remote societies, I don't like the word primitive. They're not primitive, but that seems to be the preferred term of Westerners to use.
They're rustic lodgings.
Well, yeah, they are just so much more in tune with the earth, and they live in the moment in a way that I admire. And I strive to do that. I strive to savor every moment I'm in rather than worrying about what's going to happen an hour from now. And these people, they don't do that. They live in the exact moment and they're enjoying their life all the time. And that's something for us to strive for.
Really agree with you. You know, the different tribes, it's like live in the now because that's all that is survival, right? Survival, fight or flight, or be right in that moment. And to survive anything or even go into flight, you have to be 100% present.
Right. I could drop dead of a heart attack right now, and
Oh, please don't.
not on your show. I'll wait till it's over.
Okay.
I mean, if it happened, I'm grateful for what I've seen and done.
Now, in your travels, have you seen ceremonies of life and death?
Yes, many. I participated in many. I underwent what I would call an exorcism in Benin, where these dancers that were channeling their dead ancestors made physical contact with me, which made me susceptible to the spirit world, was the way it was described to me. And a small ceremony was performed so that I wouldn't be taken away by spirits. There wasn't much to it, but the local people believed it was true. I was never in any fear of being taken away by a spirit, but I had to respect their beliefs and go through with it. And it's kind of fascinating. That became a story in itself, right? How many people have gone through an exorcism in Africa?
It's wild because the belief system, like the shamans, right, or the witch doctors, as we call them, like they are like the community's therapist, right? But also understand the power of belief, I believe.
Sure. Yeah. All these remote societies have at least one person who is their connection to the other world,
Mm.
the mystical side of things. There's far more of that in remote societies than there is in Western civilization. We have these gigantic organized religions and we build these huge church monuments that are hundreds of feet tall. And to me, that leaves me empty. To me, a cathedral is the sky over my head in a forest. And that's where religion takes place for me. So, but that's
E-
my
Yeah.
personal take.
Just even reading I remember reading a book of Bushman myths and legends and stories. And it was like how the earth was found was like spears went up in the sky, came down, and that's how the stars came down and made blessings for different things. And just all of those kinds of stories, which were oral stories told down, but someone had managed to capture some of these and maybe make them bigger, or whatever they did with it when I was a little girl, but it was just this belief system of using what nature has given you. This is where the magic is from nature and and how you interact with nature. And it's very, very much like our indigenous tribes here in North America and going even to Mexico. I mean, it's just they just that presence like you're talking about is that they actually can smell, feel, hear, and so they could really be in tune with things that we aren't because they don't have the pollution other than what we've generated, but the sound pollution and things like that. They're not desensitized.
Every society, no matter how remote, has its own creation myth. Sometimes within a large tribe, there'll be several creation myths. It depends. But I've never gone into any kind of a tribal society where there wasn't storytelling at night about their version of deities or spirits or whatever have you. That's how people spend the time. They tell stories. They don't have television. They don't have internet. They're the greatest storytellers on earth because that's their entertainment and it's their beliefs. And so they've all got their own stories.
It's fascinating to me, but they're all kind of similar, which is interesting too. Do
There's
you
a
find that?
similar, yeah,
Yeah.
there's a similarity between most of them. I mean, some differ vastly, but at the core of it, there's usually something in common with almost all of them. And that would be, why are we here? And who put us here? And who's watching over us? They all want to know that. We all want to know that.
Yeah.
I certainly don't want to feel like when I leave this life I'm currently living that there's no more. I don't believe that. There's got to be more because the universe is too rich and too complicated to be random. So there has to be a reason behind all of this. And some people call it God, whatever. But I believe there's more than just this life.
Well, it's interesting because of the whole web of life of nature and humans, because we're connected with it, right? Whereas, like,
Mm-hmm.
a tree's job is to live
Right.
because it's creating shade for and habitat and food, all kinds of things that it does with the mushrooms underground. I mean, I could go on and on, but the tree's job is to survive because all these other things are using it and it's using it back too. And yet it has this whole underground system and, all these amazing things. And I think that's actually true for individuals, humans as well. But we need to understand that we're here to be part of that. So, in a weird way, every living thing is of service in some manner.
Yes. I know of an anthropologist who said when a butterfly flaps its wings here, something moves on the other side of Africa. There's a reaction to everything we do. Cause and effect, karma, call it what you will, but we're all interconnected and all of our actions have consequences, be it good or bad, right now or later, but there is always a reaction to everything we do.
And with you meeting all these different tribes, a lot of times you're not knowing their language, right? I mean, it's like right now we're trying to even understand what they're saying. The power of body language and even silence can help you still communicate.
Yes, I can't possibly learn the language of all these people I visit. Myself, I only speak English and Spanish, and I haven't done any great exploring in Mexico. So, yeah, what I have to do is a lot of homework before I go to these places. I find a local person who makes an entree for me. They know I'm coming. They know what I want to do, and by the time I get there, they're ready for it. I don't just show up unannounced. That would never work. So.
Okay, so there's someone on the ground helping you with the communication.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
That's awesome.
I'm a longtime fellow of the Explorers Club, and I'm a member emeritus of the Adventurers Club. And between those, I have a worldwide network of people that I can call and say, look, I want to go into this country in this particular area and see this tribe. And I can got somebody out there who can give me information on it and hook me up with a
That's
local
awesome.
person who will actually physically take me into that village.
So now you're going to go to Mongolia in October. This is exciting. How long are you going to be gone?
2 weeks.
That's not enough, and you know it.
No, but I've got
Gotta
too
do
many
what you gotta do.
responsibilities. I got to fit it into the time that I can have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's beautiful. That's
It's gonna be
definitely,
it'll be a very physical trip, and I'm
yep.
getting long in the tooth. So 2 weeks is a long time for a trip like that for me.
Yeah. And it takes a while to get there, doesn't it?
Altogether, I'm going to fly 11 times in 2 weeks.
Would you like some wine when you come home? And the pizza?
I will absolutely have some wine when I come home. Maybe something more than that.
I think so. I mean, really, that's a little hectic. I'm going to say that is
Yeah,
a
it
little
is.
hectic.
Most of those flights will be on 1 or 2 days, but still, I'm in a 2 week period. I will make 11 flights.
But to be able to camp with them, in those huts, like those yurt-like huts, they're so fascinating. There's, I've been inside a Mongolian tent, how they have it in Silver City, New Mexico. There is Bear Mountain Lodge. They actually had a couple bring it over for them, and people can stay in one. But that's to me, what you're doing is like they went there first too, and they're
But
horse people. Had to
people
do with
live. These people are in 10,000-foot mountains, and you go into these yurts, and there are beautiful carpets on the floor, and there's nice furniture, and there's cooking utensils, stoves. They're living well. You step outside, and they've got their folding solar panels. Most of them will have a satellite dish, and most of them will have a motorbike, even though they spend most of their time traveling on backtrain camels or on horseback. But, they pack up everything every few weeks and they relocate. And
Wow.
where they live, and they live very well doing
I
that.
wonder if it's going to be like when you went to the Sahara,
Well, totally different. Absolutely. Yeah.
that expanse. Do you know what I mean? When you go to the desert and that kind of like Mongolia to me has got it's got mountains for sure, but
Well,
expanse.
most of Mongolia is desert, but I'm going to be in the west, up in the high mountains, the
Mm.
Altai Mountains.
Wow. You're going to see badger. I bet you see a badger.
Perhaps. I mean, there's a lot of wolves. There are snow leopards, which are very
That,
reclusive.
I mean,
I'm
that
not
would
a,
be, could you imagine that? That I
well,
doubt that would be, I would just fall
that would
down like if that happened.
that would be a gift to see a snow leopard, but no. Mostly these people hunt hares and foxes and occasionally wolves.
Hmm.
That's most of it.
Wow. You're going to have a good time.
Hunting with eagles is a spiritual quest for these people. They spend years training to do it. They perform ceremonies before and after a certain amount of years, the eagle is returned to the wild because that's their thank you for providing them for hunting with them for so many years. So
Wow.
there's a whole very complicated religious aspect to hunting with eagles, and I will get immersed in that and write about it when I come home.
And you'll write about it and then so where are you going to where are the stories? Are you going to do it as a book, do you think, or
I
gather
have no
essays?
at this point.
Yeah.
I've approached so many publishers with book ideas, and nobody's interested at this point.
Okay.
Especially collections of short stories, which is what I read. Most publishers now are looking for a book with one solid narrative arc through the whole story, and I
It's
just don't.
wild when at the same time everyone's like, I want a 10-second clip, on YouTube.
Well, that's one reason I'm doing podcasts now.
Uh-huh.
I really, nobody's interested in the stories I'm writing, so I can tell my stories directly to
Right.
people. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's all connected. I think when people are interested, they're interested, and sometimes we go through these cycles of what the society is interested in, and then in 5 years it'll all be the rage again. You know what I mean? That's to me, you just keep doing it. If
yeah,
it's
yeah.
your calling, you do it, and eventually people catch on to it. But I think their stories are fascinating because who does that? Most people are going to Rome and taking photos of the same thing as everybody else.
The only thing I've ever feared in life is living a mundane life.
Well, you didn't do that.
Right.
That's for sure. Now, are you going to do this as a speaking thing too? Because I know you do public speaking, and people can learn more at your website on that. But do you think the Mongolia will also transfer
Oh,
into
sure.
becoming yeah?
Right. I give regular programs near where I live at the Monterey Library in
Mhm.
California, and I get really good audiences, 60, 70, 80
See,
people
people
show
are
up.
interested. Yeah.
My next show is coming up, and it's going to be about how I helped to move countless manuscripts from the Timbuktu libraries to distribute them throughout the Maghreb of Mali, where they could be buried before Al Qaeda took over
Wow.
Timbuktu and destroyed everything. I'll be talking about that at my next show.
Awesome. Everyone, you can go we've got a brand new website and everyone can go there. It is James Michael Dorsey author.com. So check that out and learn more and try and get to one of his shows, but he will be here again next month. So thanks so much, James.
Thank you again, Lisa. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
You too. Thank you for joining us. To learn more about James and his books, please go to jamesmichaeldorseyauthor.com and visit us at bigblendmediahouse.com.